Hey, welcome to Optimize Your Body with Martin Silva, where we talk raw, uncut facts to truly help you optimize your body. Hey folks, so I've got another amazing guest on the line today. Goes by the name of Jamie Alderton, and I first came across Jamie when I was in my competing days back in 2015. Sorry, I'd been competing for a while at that point, but in 2015 is when I turned pro, and that's when I actually found out about Jamie Alderton on Instagram, and I started absorbing his content, and then before you know it, I had him preparing me for first coach I had to prepare me for a show in 2016 for the World Championships in Toronto. And before I actually get him to chime in, I'm it's very hard to sum this guy up because he's achieved so much in a short amount of time, and he has a hell of a story behind him. But reading off the back of his new book, Meltdown, because I think this sums it up really well. Essentially, Jamie is a best-selling author and social media expert who helps thousands of people develop their body, brain, and business. He runs one of the top body transformation challenges in the UK and has broken world records with his feats of endurance in sled pushing, backwards running, and box jumping. He balances the entire act with his family life as a loving husband and father of two. This guy is a champion. How you doing, Jamie?
What an introduction, Ryan. How are you? Yeah, thank you.
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you over there?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good. It's not as early as you. It's the evening here. Say it's the afternoon here, and it's the evening. It's the early morning where you are. So, yeah. All good, mate. All good.
Good stuff. No, I listened back to our last episode, which was it was episode 12. That was 2 years ago. This is now episode number 94. So, last time I had you on was 2 years ago, and I listened back to the audio, James, and I thought, wow, I need to liven myself up a little bit this time. I did sound half asleep, so. But no, I remember, Jane, when I started tuning into your podcast, that was a game changer for me, because yours was one of the first podcasts I started listening to, Mindset with Muscle, and which is a complete game changer for me. And I just wanted to clarify the fact that your podcast was great. And how is the podcast going nowadays, Jane?
So I'm kind of transitioning to another podcast which I'm launching next month, more focused on personal trainers and business development. Mindset Muscle is something I always enjoyed doing and will continue to do later on in the year. And it's just getting that kind of structure with it because I'm juggling a lot of things at the moment. And obviously the key for me is balance, and it's doing the things that I enjoy doing, which I do enjoy the podcast, which is why it's going to be coming back, but also just structuring things out. But yeah, I mean, the Mindset Muscle podcast has been phenomenal for the last kind of 3 years. There's so many people in the fitness industry that was doing podcasts about, nutrition and training, but no one was really, doing it on the mindset. And it was something that's always fascinated me. A while ago, I say a while ago, quite a long time ago, I was in the army for 7 years, and then I worked for the US government in psychological operations. So it's always fascinated me, the kind of psychology of people. It's been somewhat of a passion of mine over the past few years, just delving into the mindsets of other people and seeing what makes them tick, and of course seeing what makes me tick as well. Something that I've always kind of been with my comp prep days is very self-aware. I'd always coached myself, held myself accountable to things, and it's kind of a blessing and a curse, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, because you had so many great guests on your podcast, and it's so true what you say there. It is what it kind of says, right? Mindset with muscle. And I just wanted you to kind of delve a little bit deeper into just to briefly explain your journey for the new listeners, James, because obviously there's a lot of new listeners now. So if you could just give me a heads up on that, mate.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as you mentioned, my kind of three passions are body, brain, and business. I started kind of with the body, as in, I left the army after 7 years, started competed in natural bodybuilding, started in fitness modeling, won a British and European championship. And, it was a huge passion of mine. And It still is. I still love going to the gym. I still love training. But as the years go on and I get a little bit grayer, kind of transition more into the body and the brain and trying to understand what makes the brain tick. And something that I always say is transformation always starts from the neck up. So if you get your head right, it tends to fall in line, the body does. And over the years, I've had a lot of success with coaching people. I've had many different businesses. I opened my own gym facility from scratch. I run one of the top online fat loss challenges, and I spend a lot of time coaching other fitness professionals on social media and business. And it kind of a realization that business is very much like your body. It's something that is a massive passion of mine, something that needs to be worked on daily, and something that you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone for. So I found a lot of commonalities between business and your body. And that kind of central thing is that they both need your brain firing on all cylinders. And, I'd say from a business point of view and a body kind of view, I kind of push my body to the extremes. I've done a lot of crazy stuff over the years, competing at a high level in physique competitions and pushing myself for charity events, which I've done a lot of crazy 24-hour endurance events with. And they all kind of fall hand in hand with, that kind of those 3 Bs, body, brain, and business, because I'm always fascinated with, when I do something, trying to kind of push the boundaries, but also know where my limits are, because I've kind of pushed the other way many a times. And, I think that's the important thing about understanding with balance is, life isn't perfect. You sometimes go too much or too little. But then that's how you find that balance, because you either push things to the extremes and it breaks, and then you need to ease off, or, you ease off a little bit too much and then you need to put your foot down. It's something that, I've experimented a lot with. I've made a lot of mistakes over the years, and, I've benefited from those mistakes as well, because I've learned my best lessons from them.
Amazing stuff. Yeah. So I guess kind of tracking back to your first book, Mindset with Muscle, which I believe was released at the end of 2016, because just to verify for the listeners, I know you got made redundant back in the day from your role with the services, right?
Yeah. I mean, I left the army and I was basically working, I had kind of a contract job. So I started working in the Middle East for the US, and then I moved over to Kenya and Somalia, where I was security advisor for the UN, and it was actually the UN job that I got made redundant from.
Oh, right.
And that kind of forced me to follow my passion, because in 2012 I was like, jobless and about just put all my money down on a mortgage basically, and had nothing in the bank, and I was just wondering what on earth I should do. And the first time that I've ever done this in my life is just started to write things down. And, everything was pointing towards being a personal trainer. And I was always reluctant to do it, because I was thought, don't follow your passion for that, because you'll end up resenting it. And, it couldn't have been so wrong, because as soon as I started doing it, it was a massive struggle, because I had to put about £16,000 on my credit card. I had to borrow my dad's bike because I couldn't afford a car, and opened my own little studio in this countryside and got to work. And within 3 years, I was one of the best known personal trainers in the UK. I had a massive book of clients, and that enabled me to build my dream gym facility 3 years later. So it's been an up and down of struggle and success. And Mindset with Muscle, when I wrote it in 2016, was kind of that first volume of my life, going from nothing really to where I currently was. And it was quite, it wasn't funny in the least bit, but I kind of ticked every single box in 2016, and I was just like, all right, cool, you've built your dream gym facility, you've broken this world record and set loads of, given loads of money for charity. You've written this best-selling book. Oh, and your podcast is number 1. And suddenly I started to feel miserable. And you kind of don't want to tell anybody, because they're not going to listen. They're like, well, look at the year you've had. Stop whinging, kind of thing. And I went into a really dark hole. at the end of 2016, and I felt really guilty about it because I was just like, I've ticked every box, but it was a realization that the boxes I hadn't ticked was mainly the reason I was doing it all for, and it was for a happy life and for my family. I had my wife, and my daughter was 3 years old at the time, and I just realized in 2016 that I hadn't spent hardly any time with them. I was so kind of selflessly giving myself to strangers and selfishly focusing on creating this business and this brand, and it all kind of went to pot and kind of went through a massive transition for about 3 months to try and understand what on earth went wrong and how I go about fixing it. And the new book Meltdown talks about that journey through the end of 2016 and 2017 on the things that I did and tried and succeeded with to kind of get myself out of that hole. And I think the book really resonates with a lot of people because they've either been there before or they're experiencing it now. And a lot of people have read it, they resonate with one or two chapters, if not more chapters with their own lives. And a lot of it isn't telling people what they need to do, it's just giving people kind of anecdotes based on what I did and what helped me. And the great thing about that is people are going out and trying it for themselves and getting incredible results from it. And it's nice because people are experiencing those kind of breakthrough feelings that I had with the discoveries throughout that kind of 2 years of building myself back up.
Incredible. It must be a good feeling because that obviously the last book, you smashed it with that book, and that was kind of a bit of I know you probably assumed it was going to do well, but it was a bit of a shock at first, I believe, right? When you just got number one in Amazon, boom.
Yeah, and it was, something I say to people all the time is I failed GCSE English. I struggled to write the book because I'm not a natural born writer, let alone, any good at grammar. But I found that, a lot of people found that quite inspirational because it's, something that I don't do is allow that kind of thing to stop me. I try and find a way. And I think so many people need to kind of adopt that mentality because there's lots of limits that people put on themselves, which causes them to stop doing the things that they really want to do. And I've been very fortunate that I've been very self-aware, and I've built up that confidence through small wins throughout many years to basically give myself that pat on the back to say, what's the worst that can happen?
You are one of these people, Jamie. You're literally the only person I look at, and I'm like, I'm still like, how in God's name does he do it? You're like Superman. Even since in 2015 when I started following you and actually came to the gym that you were running at the time, because on top of all this stuff you were juggling. I think you did mention you were actually running a gym at this point, and I came down to the gym to meet you when you were prepping me for the show. We done a session together. And I was just like, how the hell does he do it? And I still look at you now and I'm like, how does he do all this? And obviously in 2016, you were doing all this, you had the gym as well. And then, somebody's got to give us some point. And it was at the end of 2016, right? And you said you hit the peak. You said, obviously you, the book got number one, and then you went number one with a podcast on iTunes. How did that feel, James, hitting that peak? And then at what point did you start noticing, shit, something's wrong here?
I think the biggest thing for me was, for a few days, I felt like I was walking on a cloud. I was like, this is what real success feels like. It feels great. And I'm very reflective, and it was around that Christmas period. And something that I do is I kind of do a yearly review. And I think so many people should really focus on this, because I could have easily spent, that review writing down what went right. But one thing that I like to do with any kind of review is what went wrong and what I didn't manage to do. And it took, it was such a whirlwind year that it took until December to realize so much that I didn't pay attention to, so much that I didn't do. And it was a huge realization for me that I was just like, look, I didn't have that connection with people. I was very kind of robotic, very kind of just focused and not really emotional, just ticking boxes left, right and center. And it's all very well ticking boxes and that, but if you keep up like this, then there's not going to be anyone around to share all these wins with. And I think that's a realization that, people want success and people want all this, money and fame. But, a lot of people that I see who are very focused on that end up very lonely, because all the people that are supporting them tend to leave because they don't feel valued. And I kind of really, really started to feel guilty after that. And, that's why I wanted to write the second book, because so many people were shocked. They were shocked that, that I could do all of this and then suddenly couldn't cope with it. And what I think that allows people to see is that, you can put people on pedestals and say they're superhuman, but really they're just human. They have feelings, they have emotions, they all feel the same things that you feel. And it's how they cope and deal with it. And sometimes from the outside, that looks like they're taking the world on their shoulders and, taking it in their stride. But a lot of the time they're not. And that's something that I wanted to show people, that, there was a lot of things that I wasn't doing. And I think one of the greatest things about releasing the book last year, and one of the reasons that I wanted to get it out before Christmas, was that 2019 was more or less identical with the boxes that I ticked for, in 2016. I built a new business because I closed down the gym and built a new business. I did another crazy charity event and broke another world record. I obviously wrote a new book, and I did everything that I did in 2019. Plus, my wife had our son Archer, so add another kid into the mix, and I'd probably done more in 2019 than 2016. But one thing that I did different is I probably had half that time off social media, with people that I love and with my family. And that was kind of a massive smile on my face, because we went out to Australia for 3 weeks over Christmas, and it was amazing because I'd achieved more. But the difference is I managed to celebrate all of those wins with the people around me that I loved, and I gave my undivided attention to those people. And I think a lot of people, if you were to take anything away from that, a lot of people think that you need to make a lot of sacrifices for success. And yes, you do, maybe initially, but you've also got to be realistic. I'm not just a business owner and do all of these things. I'm also a dad. I'm also a husband. And these are on the big list of priorities in my life. These are non-negotiables. The reason that I'm building the business and I do what I do is for them. So if I'm spending too much time doing that, then I've got it the wrong way round. And to kind of prove to myself that you can be, just have just as much success and still have that, had a massive smile on my face. And it allowed me to change a lot of things in the way that I viewed, the whole hustle and get shit done and, focus. Because, that's important. Of course it is. You need to be focused. You need to hustle and grind, but you also need time off. And, what we learn when it comes to muscle building and hypertrophy is stress plus rest equals growth. And so many people just focus on that stress part in order to get growth, but without the rest, you're not going to achieve it. So, and I know so many people, from competitors, a rest day is very, very difficult, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You get into the zone and you just want to train, but more isn't always better, because that's when you get injured.
Yep.
And this is exactly the same for your brain as well as your body. If you're not giving your brain rest and recovery, it's going to get injured. And the trouble with kind of mental injuries is they're not as visible as body injuries, because you can easily hide them from people. So adopting those same kind of principles of growth to, my brain, and most importantly my business too, has enabled me to see that growth. And that's the difference that I saw over 3 years. And it's the rest part. It's not feeling guilty taking a day off. It's not feeling guilty, responding to every message and email, and realizing you're only one person and you need to have that time off.
Massive learning curve for you then, James. And I only actually received, as I said off air, your new book like 2 days ago, but I've already looked through it, and it's already going to be pretty transformative for me, really, because I've already learned from the part, I guess this is what we were just talking about, but you talk about like the 4 legs on a stool in terms of your overall health, or for your, to optimize your body, brain, and business. And you've got health, wealth, productivity, and creativity. And
connectivity.
Oh, sorry, connectivity. My bad.
Yeah. And they're 4 really important things. Health, of course. I think just having a quick look through my phone, because I made a note of an actual quote, and it's by Confucius, and it says, "A sick man only wants one thing, a healthy man wants 10,000 things." And so many people take their health for granted, but when you get sick, when you get ill, everything else goes out the window because you're only focused on one thing. Health is such an important thing. Of course, you want to spend as long as possible on this planet. So reviewing on a daily basis that health and the things that you're doing towards, improving it is important. Wealth, of course, we're not just talking about how much money you've got in the bank. We're talking about social wealth as well. We're talking about how many people around you that are supporting you. We're talking about, of course, you're building up your business, you're financially becoming successful too. That's important, and measuring and managing that is so important. Unfortunately, so many people don't. When they don't see the money that they have in the bank, they think not looking at their balance will make it go away, but it doesn't. And it's exactly the same with problems that you have with, socially. If you ignore anything, it gets worse. Productivity. So many people procrastinate. We've kind of done a massive flip turn in this world where 20, 30 years ago, it's very hard to get information unless we paid for it. And nowadays, you've got everything at your fingertips. And the trouble that we have now is we've got so much at our fingertips that it's decision fatigue. Everyone goes on Netflix and takes you 25 minutes to try and figure out what you want to watch. It was much easier 30 years ago when you only had 4 channels. So it's learning how to become more productive by switching off and focusing on a few things that are going to push the needle forward instead of everything. And then connectivity, the one that I completely screwed up, was, if you're not spending time with real people, social media isn't social. What social is going for a coffee with your friend? What social is going to the cinema with your husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend? All of these things actually connecting with real people make a difference. And the analogy of a stool is, if one of them is out, then that stool is wobbly. You need to focus on all 4 to have that balance.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk about that last one, actually, which I butchered earlier. So, connectivity, not creativity. But that was actually my lowest score, connectivity. And I like the way you've put it together, the book, because it is so kind of simplified in terms of what it is, right? And connectivity for me is, for example, I spend a lot of time now because I'm building stuff online, and I'm just getting absorbed into it, and I've got, like, I'm not being as strict with my evening routine and stuff like that. And basically I scored that was my lowest score, the connectivity, because I'm not really putting enough effort in to for those human interactions. And actually, like you said, social media is not social. I'm spending a lot of time on there, which, as you say, if anything, is the opposite to proper human, connection. So that was a bit of a wake up call for me, that one, Jim, for sure. I got a lot of work to do there.
And I think it's a realization, if you treated somebody else like you treated yourself, they would probably not hang around for very long. And that's important to remember, that you've got to look after yourself. And in order for you to look after yourself, we've got to add that rest part, because if you're trying to grow a business, you need to switch off from it. You've had a There must have been a time where you had a day off or a weekend off or went on holiday, and then suddenly you realize you've got all these ideas. That creativity, which you spoke about, starts coming back.
Yep.
You start writing things down. You start mapping things out. You start getting excited for the things that you are not excited about before. All of that comes about. When does that come about? Does it come about when you're in the business, or does it come about when you're outside not thinking about it? And if you know that, which it is, then why aren't you spending more time out of that business to grow that business? This is so important, especially with sleep. I was the 4-hour guy. Only need 4 hours sleep. All this kind of thing. If you sleep 2 hours less a day, in a year, you get an extra month of being awake and getting shit done. But the reality is, you don't get any shit done if you're tired. In fact, just things take longer to do. And a well-rested 8 hours, well-rested Jamie who slept for 8 hours can do a hell of a lot more than an up early 4-hour Jamie who's knackered throughout the day. And that comes down to that rest part. And it's so important to force yourself off those things. And you have to go to extremes for it. If I have my phone by my bed, I will quickly scroll Instagram or that before I go to sleep. So the alternative is to put my phone downstairs, and I've just bought, this year I bought an alarm clock because physically I cannot, I've got a paper book by my bed and I've got an alarm clock to wake me up, and that's it. And that has changed my complete habit in the evening, where I might just get triggered or answer that quick message or start thinking about something. And that's enabled me potentially to get maybe an extra 20, 30 minutes sleep a night. But you think that's 20, 30 minutes compounded over 7 days, compounded over a year, how much more sleep that is and how much more energy I'm going to have for the next day. And you've got to force yourself away from these things. One thing I would do is go and buy yourself a timed box or something, or a lock or a padlock or something, and getting to a routine and a ritual of locking your phone away. And even if you've got a partner or that, give them the key. Because if you think about habits, it's very easy to pick up your phone and scroll. But if you're having to ask your other half for a key, you're kind of fucked up, really, because actually there's a lot of effort involved then in then getting the key, then opening the box and then doing it. By then, hopefully your brain says, what the fuck are you doing? And you've got to, this day and age, you've got to force yourself away from these habits that you have, because running an online business, running a business involves a lot of social media time, a lot of interacting with people. But you can't do that all day long, and I run an online business. The great thing about a physical business is you can close the door, and there's always someone that wants something, be it a question, an email, a query, and you need to allocate time for that. And 8 o'clock at night is not the time for that. 8 o'clock at night is the time you down tools and you catch up with your other half, or you whack Netflix on and watch some zombies or something, or spend time with your children. These things will make you better.
Definitely. And that's something I've been a bit lax with lately, is in the evening, over the last, say, few weeks, I get my phone. You can put the settings on your phone, James, to lock you out. But it doesn't, I'm going to do what you said and just get my, get a box and lock it away.
Well, that's what I did. I put, my phone goes on obviously quiet mode and it dulls all the apps.
Yep.
And that was good for a month, but then I started just getting into the habit of going back on it.
I'm glad you said that, Jim. I feel better now, because that's exactly what happened to me. I was doing it. I was really strict. Wednesday and Saturday locks me out at 7 p.m. Perfect. Done it for a month. And now I'm back to my old ways. So I've got to just lock it away, because I said, even yesterday, for example, I was having issues, James, yesterday. Basically, my computer filled up with memory. I was trying to post a podcast. One of those days was a 1 hour job.
I know those days.
Yeah, it took me
those days.
You know better than anyone, James. But no, it took me something stupid, 4 or 5. I was having issues, 4 or 5 hours. Anyway, mate, I ended up going to bed later, all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And it's kind of appropriate time to mention that, because I was just like last night, after actually skimming through your book as well and looking at the productivity part as well. That's definitely something I've got to work on now, is delegating out the stuff that I don't enjoy, as you say in your book, because that is what is it's my lack of discipline, obviously, with the we're not being rigid with the night routine, but it's also like trying to do too much and doing, like you said in the book, doing the things you don't like, and then obviously expecting too much out of yourself, I guess, Gene.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you've got to expect a lot of yourself, but you've also got to have limits on what you do. And you've also got to go to extremes to make sure they happen, especially with your mobile phone. I say to people, yeah, that's me. You've got to be extreme, because it's like it's like saying that you're giving up smoking, but still having a pack of cigarettes in your pocket. Just saying, oh, I'm not going to be on my phone after 8 and still, just having it around means that you're just tempting fate too much. And I'm not saying any of this is easy. This takes a lot of work, but it's like any habit. You start to see the benefit from the habit, and then you start to do it more. And that's what I found. I've been so much happier in the evenings. I've been so much, I go to sleep a lot more. I'm more productive. And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. Why is this? Oh, yeah, get more sleep. I'm not triggered on my phone. I've got better routines. And it all compounds, and it then becomes easier because you see the benefits of doing it. It's a bit like when you have a client that goes to the gym, they're lacking a bit of motivation, they're struggling a bit, and then they see an old school friend that they haven't seen for 20 years, and they're like, oh my God, you look amazing. How motivated is that person then to eat healthy and go to the gym? Because suddenly they've just seen the benefits from all the hard work that they're putting in. And it's the same with habits as well.
Yep. That's exactly right. And whilst we're on that topic then, the morning routine as well. That's something that I'm a lot more rigid with, but the night routine I feel at the moment is actually even more important for me. But yeah, talk us through how your morning looks, James, because you're just like, you guess you're all over, you're in the ocean 1 minute, next minute, you're doing your stories on your phone. I don't know how you do it. I still don't.
Firstly, I've been doing it for many years. Maybe, the sea dip's about a year, but I live about 10 minutes from the beach. It's very cold in the UK. We haven't got the Aussie weather over here.
Exactly.
I kind of, my alarm goes off about 5:30. I'm an ex-soldier, so I'm used to getting up early, so it's a lot easier for me. But I go downstairs. Usually, my daughter Eliza's 6 now, and she's an early riser, so she comes down. Usually, wakes me up at 5:25. I go down, make a breakfast, then download my audio book or podcast, get my swimming kit and that. Go down to the beach, jump in the sea. At the moment, it's pretty cold, about 7-8 degrees. Very, very, very cold.
January in the UK.
It is, yeah. So a couple of minutes usually in there, which I'm at the moment only doing 1 or 2 dips a week. That will go to every day as the weather gets better. And well, the main thing is that I like to go for a dip when the sun rises. And the sun doesn't rise at the moment until about 7:45, which means it's, if I'm getting up at 5:30 and going for a walk, it's still pitch black. I do have a head torch, but I much prefer a nice cold sunrise dip. But I've always gone for a walk, which I get about 6,000 steps in. Then I come back, a little bit of stretching and mobility, plan out my day with my whiteboards, have a look at my content, quickly check emails. My operations manager and my videographer come in at 9:30, and then we crack on and get to work for the day.
Nice. Yeah, the cold showers and the cold therapy, James. What's the main benefits you've had from that, mate?
So a lot of people look at jumping in the sea and cold showers as pretty crazy. I think I've had the word crazy thrown around a lot. And a lot of people say, what are the benefits? And I can sit here and talk physiologically, the benefits of cold adaptation on the body, et cetera, but I want to talk more mindset wise and psychologically. No one likes cold showers, okay? No one sits there going, I can't wait for my cold shower this morning. No one. Okay, maybe Wim Hof, but he's Wim Hof. I do not wake up skipping to the beach to jump in the ocean. I don't. Everything in my body tells me not to do it, which is why I do it. because there's a great quote by John Maxwell, and what he says is, motivation gets you going and discipline keeps you growing. And if you rely on motivation to get things that you know that you need to do done, then you'll only do them when you're feeling motivated. You need to condition your brain to do things that you don't want to do and do them anyway, because you know the benefits from them far outweigh not doing them. And this isn't necessarily cold showers. This can be going to the gym. This can be reading a chapter of a book. This could be all these things that you know you need to do to push the needle forward. So the cold showers and the sea dips are really just allowing myself to, say to myself, you're not doing it, and then repeat to myself, which is exactly why you're doing it. And I've yet to walk out of a cold sea without a smile on my face. I've yet really to walk out of a gym without feeling great. And you suddenly realize the things that are really hard to get yourself to do actually feel great once you've done them. And that really, for me, psychologically, is why I love the cold and the cold showers and the dips so much, is because it's really, really helping me have a better relationship with my own thought process and kind of question myself to push myself and do things even though I don't want to do it. And it comes down to that discipline thing. If you can discipline yourself to do things, you won't have other people needing to discipline you. And it's as simple as that, because you don't need to be motivated, because you just do the work.
There we go. Yeah. And I can identify what you're saying with the cold showers, because I've been doing that for just over 2 years now. But the funny thing is, James, obviously I moved out to Oz, and out here it's a lot easier than the UK. It gets a bit tougher in the winter, but it's funny because I went back to the UK, and it was like I had to spend another day or two adapting, because even the water out there is colder. I remember I honestly felt like my nose was going to fall off when I had my first cold shower. I was like, oh shit, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It is. Even the water's much colder out there, because obviously it's colder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's cold. It's really, it's January here. It's miserable. If you want to, a lot of people are very unmotivated, which means you have to be very disciplined to do these things. I wake up and it's horrible. It's raining. The last thing, I literally got a hood up, head down, going to the sea, knowing that I'm about to get half naked and jump in. And the thing is, if I can do it here now, then I can probably do it anywhere, because this is the worst time of year to do it, which makes it the best time to do it.
That's extreme discipline, James, that is. But I can imagine how it carries over still to other areas of your life, right? Because this is the time where you're kind of really putting yourself to the test mentally, right? It's pitch black January, peak winter in the UK.
Yeah, and obviously that goes to extremes, but the thought process is the same for everything. And that's what you have to understand. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. There are other things that I do not want to do. So I have that conversation with myself. But when I'm building up that relationship of going, oh, that's nice, you're doing it anyway, then I get a lot more stuff done. Because it comes down to that discipline of, I know I don't want to do it, but I need to do it anyway. And that's been a massive game changer for us, because we're very inclined to believe the story that we tell ourselves. We don't want to do it, so we don't do it. That's cool. And then you wonder why you haven't got the things that you want in life. You haven't got the success, you haven't got the physique, you haven't got, all of these things. And a lot of it is because you're not doing the work. And we need to be honest with that. We need to be more disciplined, because if you're going to go to your friends and say, I couldn't be asked to do that, and they're hanging around saying, oh, neither could I, then you've kind of let yourself off the hook for things.
Absolutely. And talking about discipline, James, before we just crack on to the next, another little segue next, I wanted to talk to you about the discipline that was required to push a 140 kg sled for 16 miles. So you pushed the sled. I didn't realize it weighs 140 kilos, James, either. That's news to me. How?
I've got a good friend called Ross Edgeley, and he coined an incredible quote. For those who don't know who Ross Edgeley is, he's one of the first men to ever swim around the entire UK. So, it took him 5 months, and he swam 12 hours a day, and he swam around 2,700 miles. And the quote that he used is, "You have to be naive to start and stubborn to finish." And I go into a lot of these things very naively, but because of my stubbornness, I end up finishing them. And that's basically how I managed to do it. I trained for about 6-7 weeks, and then I just put my head down and said, "Right, sled, it's just you and me for the next 24 hours. And it was just a case of pushing it up and down until the timer ran out. Went through a lot of different things in my head with that, but you learn a lot about yourself, and it comes down to that voice that you have in your head. Those times where you want to stop. I think it was I was trying to understand what this was, where you tell yourself you want to stop, and then suddenly an hour later you're fine. And David Goggins coins this phrase very well, and he calls it the 40% rule. And he says that very much like Navy SEALs, and he went through Navy SEAL training. When you feel like that's it, that's all you have to give. When you understand that you're only at 40%, you've just got to get through that, and then you will get that energy to go on. And that's something that I found with a lot of the endurance things that I've done over the last few years, is that you do hit those points where you want to kind of give in, but you've just got to put your head down and get through them. And I had plenty of those throughout the 24 hours, and I just ignored them and just carried on. And I think once you've done something like that, I've done a couple of crazy ones since then. You kind of condition your mind to, once you've done something like that, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I've done this before. We just need to get through this together and hopefully come out on the other side.
Mm. And that purpose behind it as well, James, right? Because obviously you raised like £10,000 on that particular one alone, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is when it's for charity, this is for local charities, that I've done it for over the last 3 events I've done, and it's for a greater cause, and I don't want to let people down. So that's another massive, kick up the arse, because you don't want to fail, because you want to raise as much money for these local charities, and they're relying on that fundraising too, which kind of makes me responsible to get it complete.
Talk to us quickly about running backwards and jumping Box Everest and the other 2 events. The running backwards one, that it cracks me up. I saw how fast you can run backwards, James. It's insane.
Yeah. Do you know what? It started off as a kind of a comedy thing, because it was kind of my party trick. After you have a few too many beers, that I tend to be able to. It was actually funny. I think it was about a year before I did the I think it was a few months after the box jump. There was I think he was an Olympic 800 meter runner that I was at a party with, and I challenged him at 2:00 in the morning. I said, "I bet I can run faster than you can run forward," and we drew, I think. So it's just been a mad talent of mine. I can run incredibly fast backwards. So my next charity event, I wanted to do something with backwards running, and I just said, well, you're pretty fast, but how far can you go in 24 hours? And that was kind of the seed was planted then. So the next event was a 24-hour backwards run around a track to raise money for my local children's hospice. And that was 2017. So that was when I kind of came out of the other side of, kind of the meltdown, and that was an incredible event. It was, I think I went 109 kilometers in 24 hours, and we raised around £21,000. And as with these things, it was incredible when social media suddenly turns around and says, well, what's next? And I was just like, okay, what next? And then for some reason in my head, I was just like, it's got to be something to do with box jumping, because no one likes box jumps. I don't particularly like box jumps, but let's see the next event if we can do something with the box jumps. And kind of looked at the box in my gym. 24 inches was about 2 foot, so it's 2 foot box. I worked out Everest is about 20, I think it's 29,030 feet. So that divided by 2 equates to 14,515 jumps on a box to climb Everest. So kind of broke that down into how many I would need to do an hour in order to, get it in 24 hours, and kind of settled on trying to do it in 22 hours. And that meant I had to do 660 box jumps an hour for basically for 22 hours straight. And that was the challenge, which I did this, I think it's about 3 months ago. Yep. So it was, but how I kind of worked it out is I did 15 box jumps a minute for 45 minutes. 13 box jumps a minute for 45 minutes, 15 box jumps a minute for 5 minutes. And then that was 660 in 50 minutes, which allowed me 10 minutes at the end of every hour just to, change my clothes, get a massage and mentally prepare myself for the next hour. And managed to jump Everest in 22 hours and 18 minutes. And the most amazing thing is we raised with gift aid over 25,000 for the local children's hospice. So that's And that was without a doubt the toughest one. I had to dig really deep in a lot of times during that, but I had a lot to reflect on during that, and I'd had that experience of going through those horrible, ups and downs when it comes to it. So I was very grateful to have kind of completed that. That was, I think, probably one of my most proudest ones that I've done out of the 3. Really, really difficult, but really, really rewarding.
Yeah, from a physical standpoint, like you would think, because of, your legs, like how could you physically jump towards the end? That's what I can't get my head around.
I think what people have to realize with anything is the more you do something, the better you get at it. And when it comes to training, what they call it is the SAID principle. It's the law of specificity. So it's specific adaptation to imposed demands. And the more that you do something, I trained for 3 months, and I didn't start with 22 hours of box jumps. I started with 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And, I got a lot of injuries along the way. I got better. I got more efficient. And it's that kind of realization that, you look at some incredible feats that human beings have done. You've got the, I think it's the Kenyan runner, Kipchoge, who's just done a sub 2 hour marathon.
Didn't he take 2 minutes off it? Sorry to interrupt. Didn't he take 2 minutes off the time or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
crazy.
when you look at the speed that Kipchoge did it meant that he had to run at 13.5 miles an hour for the entire 26.2 miles. Now, ladies and gents, what I want you to do, and if you fall off, I am not held responsible for this, but just stick a treadmill. If it's in kilometers an hour, that's probably around 22, 23, 24 kilometers an hour. The thing will be going probably the fastest that you can do a treadmill, and just see how fast or how long you can last. I think I decided to give it a go, and I think I managed it was about 1:25. And most people, even top runners, and I mean like top runners, are getting about 2.5 minutes. And this guy's just done it for 2 hours. So you're always asking how. And like people ask me how I box jump Mount Everest. And it's just adaptation. It's training. It's amazing what your body can achieve when you condition it to be, when you commit to the training that's involved and you believe in yourself to do it. And I didn't know if I could do it. It comes down to that naive to start and stubborn to finish. There was some scary times in there where I did a 3-hour session and pulled a calf. And I was like, wow, if this happens 3 hours in and I've got, 19 hours left, how am I going to deal with this? And it's the same with the backwards run. I remember doing a 6-hour backwards run session and breaking down in tears. I was in so much pain. And I was just trying to figure out how the hell am I meant to do 4 times this amount. but you just keep pushing forward and get better, and get the training done, and just have that naivety and stubbornness to finish.
No, man, it's gonna.
But the thing I like to say to people with this, I'm not an elite athlete. I just believe in what you can achieve if you commit to the things that you do. You're speaking to someone here who failed his GCSEs completely, and the only reason I joined the army is I was probably going to go to prison. I was a little shit at school, didn't pay attention, and I learned a lot of things later on in life. I didn't read my first book till I was 26, and I say this to people all the time, like, I'm nothing special, you're nothing special, and what matters is the things that you wake up every day and do and get better at, and block out the noise and channel that energy to do, and you'll be amazed at the things you can achieve.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic. Talking about another thing that you brought me onto, James, one of the many things you actually influenced me to focus on was Stoicism, the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. It was a game changer for me. Talk to us about Stoicism, James.
So, yeah, the Daily Stoic, I still read it today. I think I'm on the 4th year of reading it now. And basically, Stoicism, the easy way to explain it is what it kind of teaches you is to control what you can control, and, ease up on the things that you can't. And it allows you to have certain mental processes, certain philosophies in life about letting go of things that don't matter, about having a better perspective on things, and having control over your emotions, and going through different kind of mental models and conditioning to be able to do it. Because as with anything, in order to build your body, you need to put it through sets and reps. In order to build your brain, you need to put it through sets and reps. And that's why I read the Daily Stoic every day. I ponder on each thing that it says. And, Stoicism has very much changed my life because it's allowed me to look at things in a different way. It's allowed me to, ease up on things and people, and focus on the things that I can control. Because there's only a few things that you can control. You can only kind of control your desires, your temptations, and the thing in between your head. The things that you think and how you respond to them. And there's sometimes you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it. And that's very much one of the things with Stoicism, is learning how to respond. And if something bad happens to you, a natural tendency is to reciprocate with that thing the same that is being put on to you. But what Stoicism very much teaches you is to understand why that person might have done that, and to have empathy and understanding for that. And also knowing that, you actually letting go of that actually helps a hell of a lot, because fighting fire with fire doesn't work. It really doesn't, just aggravates it and gets worse. But an example of this is if someone such as a troll or that puts a hateful comment on a video, you naturally want to defend or respond or get annoyed. But actually, if you respond with positivity and are actually nice to a person who's not nice to you, it's very hard for them to respond negatively. I've even had apologies in the past. I've even had people, change their mind just because I've been nice in response. And the best thing about being nice in response, there's no stress about it. Because people are going through their own struggles. You don't know what's going through that person's head. You don't know the problems that they have. And most of the time, those who shout hate are usually shouting for help. So when you understand that, it allows you just to basically chill the fuck out a lot more. And relax and focus on the things that matter, and most importantly, don't get wound up about the things that don't.
Yeah, your voice is in my head as well. That simple thing you say is, I don't know where I heard you say this, but everything is going to be fine, right? You said, yeah. I think you said that before, and I just go through my head sometimes. I'm like, everything's going to be fine. Stop whinging,
Yeah, and also I think I heard this amazing Zen quote years ago, and it's always stuck with me, and I always say it over and over again because it's so true. And it's the outcome is not the outcome, because the end is not near yet. And I kind of want to finish on this story because it's an amazing story, and it's a story of a farmer who has horses, and one of the horses, he wakes up in the morning and it's gone. And the village people said, "Oh, that's a shame." And the farmer says, "Well, I don't know. We'll see." The next day, the horse comes back, but it brings back 2 more horses. And the village people say, "Well, that's fortunate." And the farmer says, "Well, I don't know. We'll see." And the day after that, his son was riding one of the horses and it bucked him off and broke his leg. And the village people said, "Oh, how unfortunate of your son to break his leg." And the farmer said, "I don't know. We'll see." About a week later, the army were rounding up a lot of the healthy, fit males, and because they were off to war, and because of the son breaking his leg, he couldn't go to that war. And the village people said, "How fortunate of your son." And the farmer responds, "Well, I don't know. We'll see." And what I love about that is you'll have amazing things happen to you in your life, and you'll have shit things happen to you in your life, but it's not the end of your life yet. And you don't know whether that bad thing could be the best thing that ever happened to you, such as being made redundant. But at the same time, you don't know how all of those amazing things could be the worst thing that happened to you, which it was for me as well. But at the same time, I learned lessons from every single one, which made me better. So if you can kind of remind yourself of good or bad, you don't know yet. You just have to wait and see. Then it allows you to calm down, it allows you to focus, and it allows you to learn the lessons from whatever it is that's happening to you currently, because they will make you better if you allow them.
Great way to wrap this one up. Just finally, James, your book, right? Meltdown, your new book. And also, I want the listeners to check out your older book as well, Mindset with Muscle, because that's obviously a top seller and a really powerful book as well. But yeah, Meltdown, where's the best place they can get that in, James?
Best place is Amazon. So if you just go into Amazon, type in Meltdown. It's easy to see. It's a bright orange book, and I'm sure if you click on that one, the recommended with that will be with Mindset and Muscle too. So just type Meltdown into Amazon and it will appear.
Awesome, James. Where's the best place for the audience to find you?
I think best place to find me would be on Instagram at @Alderton, JayAlderton.
Great stuff. And whilst you're at it, folks, go and check out, because you've obviously got your podcast as well, Mindset with Muscle, which is still about, and you're starting something new now, right, as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I spoke about body, brain, and business, I've helped a lot of fitness professionals over the years. I'm very passionate about helping other people with their social media, with their online business, and digital marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very much something I'm going more into this year, which I'm excited about.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks a lot for your time, James. I know how precious an hour of your time is, mate, so I can't thank you enough.
Thank you ever so much.
Cheers, James.